So, as you said, we saw ROJO at the ICA in the little one, packed out again, very intimate performance.
Extremely so.
It's set in Argentina during the mid-70s, just before the US state-sponsored military junta that took place across many countries in Latin America at this time. It's set during like a period of like heightened militarism in Argentina. Like they'd already experienced loads of military governments by this point, so...
And I guess it's about the complicity.
Yeah, exactly.
And how the citizenship, as opposed to military officials, participated in the sort of ideological shift.
Yeah, definitely. I think complicity is like the key thing here. It's about, I guess, the main character is like a family man, like a lawyer in this like provincial Argentine town, quite prominent member of the community.
It seems like a pretty small town, really.
Yeah, for sure. Like everyone knows each other. I think that's like meant to be quite important.
When they're in that restaurant scene at the start, I feel like it takes place in front of like the whole community's eyes.
Yeah, definitely. So it starts with this super intense sequence, which is shot amazingly, like the whole film, where the main character encounters, I guess, like a sort of like bellicose dude who's...
A free spirit.
Yeah, he's referred to as the hippie throughout the film, even though it's clear that he's just like a leftist.
But their grievance is not political, or at least not on the surface. I mean, everything is political, obviously. But it's about a seat at a table, right? That's what
No, but it's a really allegorical sequence.
Yeah,
so,
I know,
obviously,
I know.
yeah.
But then,
yeah, no, literally it is. But by the end of it, the hippie is screaming Nazis at the whole restaurant, accusing them of complicity in, you know, a right-wing way of life, you know, which drips down throughout the whole of society, and that's what the film's about.
Yeah, I mean, it's humorous in times.
Yeah, it's a murder mystery as well, but the humour is, really prevalent throughout.
There are certain characters who are not interested in solving the murder mystery.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, after the frustratingly conservative filmmakers covered recently, like Joanna Hogg and Quentin Tarantino, we wanted to take an ideological shift of our own on Film Graze, do some real praxis. Let's get into it. I loved ROJO.
Yeah, it was probably my favourite film of the year.
Nice.
Yeah. On so many levels, like, as I briefly touched upon, really visually throughout, it's really astonishing. I think the cinematographer's called Pedro Sotero, who I think the director's worked with him before, but, like, I think they used 70s equipment and lenses to try and achieve the... to record the aesthetic of the sort of films that they're recalling and the aestheticization of the time that they're representing.
I guess No by Pablo Larraín is a bit similar in that regard, right?
Yeah, definitely, but that's like, I think that's set in the 80s.
That's a good film, though.
Definitely, but I guess similar. This felt less like, I feel like No, maybe because it uses like, it's about like media communication.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah.
They really amp up like the graininess of... You know, they really like put the post filters on it.
True. But, Instagram.
But in this, it seemed, you know, I guess it's relatively organic, but really like sumptuous landscapes and some really jokes like close-ups as well, with this sort of like miniaturization effect almost, where you're seeing someone over someone's shoulder and you just get like a warped perspective of it. Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting visual technique that I used a couple of times.
The central sequence, the film's called ROJO, and there's not that much red. And the frame is pretty, like, beige and yellow film. But then there's a sequence where there's a solar eclipse or a lunar eclipse.
A solar eclipse, yeah. It's in the daytime, so they run away to the beach, basically.
Him and his wife.
And his daughter... I guess one of the other main characters, after like the patriarch starts fearing he'll get caught by the guy that's on his tail, who's played by Alfredo Castro, actually one of the biggest Chilean actors.
Yeah, he's in a lot of Lorraine films. He's in The Club, he's in Neruda, Tony Manero, and No.
Yeah.
Great performance from him, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So they go to the beach and, yeah, as you say, the central sequence takes place where they put on, like, the solar glasses, burn their eyes.
The main character doesn't have his.
Yeah.
He does the Joey Badass, you know.
No, not even.
Joey Badass, like, went blind after he was, like, tweeting to his followers, like, oh, they're just telling you to wear those glasses.
Oh, yeah,
it's like
exactly.
mind control. And then his next tweet was like, I've got to cancel the next few dates.
Yeah, this scene, like, really... It's at, like, the height of the film's paranoia that's, like, cultivated throughout. And, you know, there's a crazy moment in this bit where the main character's wife, played by Andrea Frigerio, is her name. I think a lot of these people are quite
significant actors.
Yeah, for sure. She's like, they're walking down the beach. She's like, I've got to piss, and then she goes off to the shrubs, and she meets some guy with some crazy welding mask, and it's really. Really horrifying.
It's like The Shining or something.
Yeah. So this sequence is all with a red filter. Yeah. I guess in terms of the significance of the title as well, it's about, you know,
the spectre haunting South America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Also, maybe the idea of seeing red and these moments, you know, hot-bloodedness. Yeah, I mean, it's a film that's all about violence as well, and how with the normalisation of violence by a government, political opponents or perceived threats being disappeared. In a lot of these all of these regimes, again, this is state-sponsored, US-sponsored violence as part of Cold War paranoia.
Tactics. And everything that comes with that. All the bureaucratic structures, those resources that can endow. Disappearances, though, as a theme is, I don't know, I haven't seen too many contemporary Argentinian films, but Lucrecia Martel's, her most famous, probably The Headless Woman, and that, again, is about a complacent middle-class woman may or may not be involved in the murder of a random figure and a disappearance, and how that is just that takes place quite early on in the film, and the rest of the film is her just going about her life acting as if nothing happened.
Yeah. This is something that this generation of Latin American filmmakers are dealing with in terms of their recent history and their family history as well, you know.
Yeah, wasn't the director's grandmother disappeared or something? I think I read that.
In ROJO?
Yeah.
He said, during this, someone set fire to his family's house. I'm not sure, I don't think he was alive at the time.
Right.
They basically were, forced into exile.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The film starts with the sort of looting of a house of someone who's been disappeared.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's just about just the way that people just accept this or are complicit in it, politically or socially as well. Because the idea is that everyone knows that this violence takes place. More of an epistemological question than a judicial one. In that the knowledge or of it actually having happened is more important almost than
the consequences or the...
Yeah, because it's so widespread. Yeah, I mean, the director, Benjamín Naishtat, refers to this as a genocide. I guess he's referring broadly to political persecution in Latin America in pretty much across the 20th century. We're talking about Argentina here, but in Chile, where Alfredo Castro, who plays one of the main characters, and the detective in this, where he's from, they also have a very similar history where there'll be a democratic state of some sort, which either ends up being a shadow government for the generals, or ends up in a coup or a junta,
which represents itself in a European film that we're going to talk about later.
Definitely.
This film had one of the best last lines of dialogue I've seen in a film recently. I've read in a subtitled film recently. Yep. We won't spoil it.
Okay, there are a few more things. So, as well as following, just in terms of representing the idea of violence going throughout society.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the subplots.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, one of them's one of his friends is trying to buy the yard that's shown at the beginning and sell it on, right? Because that's just a viable economic option or something that's almost if you can do it, you may as well. And they go and there's a bloody handprint on the wall. And then they go into the garden and there's just a woman sitting there oh yeah, you were just passing by, right? Yeah. And she's just sitting in a deck chair smoking a cig. But probably the main subplot is about his daughter and her relationship with like this like young guy who's like, I guess in her year group or whatever. It's implied that he's a murderer.
He's an actor of the state or whatever, even as a high school kid.
He's just like shown to be increasingly like, I guess, jealous throughout the film, and then this culminates in like what's implied to be like another like disappearance of, in this case, like an innocent, you know. But again, it's shot really amazingly and so much humour throughout it, while dealing with about as dark a subject as you can get, really.
Serious. You loved it.
You loved it.
I loved it as well. I want to see it again.
I think I'm done.
That's ROJO. It's not the movie film of the week anymore. You're pissed, but do try and see it.
I must say, I tried to track down some of his previous work, and I was having quite a hard time.
You got to learn Spanish.
What, for the search terms?
No, just to watch it. If there's not like, if it didn't get like distributed and there's no like English subtitle version or whatever.
Right. Yeah. But really interesting filmmaker, and I'm interested to see what he's clearly grappling with some really interesting themes.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued to see what he'll do next.
Film Graze, seal of approval.
Definitely.
Maybe we'll put the heart on it on our Letterboxd account. Do follow film_Graze on Letterboxd if you've got it. We are cataloguing every film covered in this podcast. We've got about 30 on there so far. And yeah, let's connect.